Hi, I'm David, and welcome to another edition of Adventures in Book Scouting. Um, it's been a very busy, very surprisingly, very busy holiday weekend for me. Um, a lot of times when there's a lot of activity, people, celebrating or when there's graduations, when there's vacation times, it usually translates into very slow times for me, but for whatever reason, I don't remember the Memorial Day weekend being a busy time in the past. But since Saturday afternoon, I've shockingly accrued 22 orders, a whopping 22 orders. So I'll share with you some of the things that I've sold. I got started packing on some of them, but there's a lot that I haven't yet packed, and I need to get cracking on that. So that'll set some boundaries in the time for this video. I'm going to try to keep it a little shorter than it's been. Let's see. We'll start with a vintage edition of Sigmund Freud, and I'll try to also mention where I got the books. This one came from a bag sale. I think I've had it a few years. Sold for $15. I don't believe it's a first edition. I mean, obviously, it wouldn't be a first edition because it's not in German. But first English language or American edition, it might be. It's from 19. It's got a 1950 copyright, and some of his works or his titles were published after he died. Published for the first time in English. It's possible it was the first, but nice. Had a dust jacket. Figured I'd pick it up, and it sat for a little while, but it sold. Um, Book in Spanish. Fernando Pessoa, or actually Portuguese, was his native um, language. A Portuguese poet and author, and I think this sold for about $12. Again, this was from a. This is I've had this book for a while. Foreign language books can really sit for a long time. They're usually available, at least in my area of the country. There's a lot of Spanish language, French language, German language books. You can pick them up certainly at bag sales, and very few people touch them because they're very low sales rankings. But it's nice to get a sale every now and then, and this one was for 12, but they can go for a lot more than that. It's just one of those things that surprise you. You list them and put them away, and then one day, a few years down the road, you're making a sale for $50, $100, 25, whatever it is. It's helpful. This was nice, and this somehow or other it came from a bag sale as well. That earlier this year, This is called the Library of American set. Library of America. John O'Hara, an author who hailed from a part of Pennsylvania, about an hour west of where I am, Pottsville. Um, so this is a nice series. Always look out for these, and if they're in clean condition. There's two different kinds. I have a example of the other kind of. There also were issued the slipcased editions, and either way, they're collectible. This one I put in the case upside down. They have the nice little built-in bookmarker ribbon. A lot of times you'll see them without the case. They just look like plain cloth hardcovers. If they don't have the case, I might leave it alone. With the case, always good. And with this version with the dust jacket, the black dust jacket, always pick up nice clean copies like this. It's a very wide-ranging series, and this sold for, I believe, 15 or 20. I got so many orders that I can't even remember exactly. And there weren't many like big sales. It's more like a nice quantity of orders. Um, there was some nice ones. This one, I'm pretty proud of this. And another, I'm unbelievably, something that I found at a bag sale last fall. This is a first edition, first printing of a pretty famous book. If you're not familiar with Shoeless Joe, it was the basis for the film Field of Dreams, which I'm sure people are more apt to know. Um, W.P. Kinsella wrote a lot of baseball-related fiction, and this was by far his most famous book. And it's a really nice copy. I put it in the Mylar sleeve, um, but it has a very clean jacket. It has even the original price wasn't clipped from it, which is nice, and no inscriptions or markings. And I don't know if it's I'll try to hold it up. You can see that number line down to the number 1, which means it's a first printing. Houghton Mifflin. This is from, I think, 1981 or 82, and the movie came out later in the 1980s. So very, very nice. I sold this for $75 on Biblio. Another bag sale find, not a very lucrative sale, and I've seen, this is a very common book. You'll probably see in paperback all the time. It doesn't have much value, but a nice clean hardcover edition. I sold this for $12. It's like in like new condition, and a new translation by a noted poet, modern poet, not Robert Pinsky, that came out a few years back. So a pretty collectible edition. One of the things I wanted to talk about, at least at some length, either today or some other time, was that the difference and how you can gauge the value of a book in terms of collectible value or merely a book that has utilitarian value, the big difference between these two types of books is the condition, or the importance of the condition. Here's a book. Well, I guess I don't have a great example handy. Okay, maybe something like this. Oh, there's that fire. This time I noticed it. The fire alarm. I had a previous episode in which I somehow talked right through the fire alarm going off. I live about a block from a fire station. Okay, just taking a little detour here to illustrate my my point about a book that has more collectible value and utilitarian. So this is more of a reference book. It's not a great example. A better example would be something that would be a technical or like a science book. It's useful primarily for the information it contains. It doesn't really have collectible value, and you want to have the lowest price, basically, no matter what. Unless there's one below you that has the cover torn off and that it's falling completely apart. Generally, books like this, and this is more of like a sort of a genealogical book, so you think that this and a paperback reprint, so it's not going to have great collectible value. It's something that people might want just for the information. So in that case, you want to try to have the lowest price, period. Go below books that may be in lesser condition because the condition is not as important. But in a book like this, there probably were a lot of other books that were priced far below the $12 I sold it for. Mine was in like new condition, however, and I feel like it's important to be able to ascertain whether a book has collectible value and whether you can go above people who have it priced lower, who may not have bothered to put in a specific condition, so that when people who are looking for a nice copy, and must have to sort of assume that there are people who are going to want a good condition copy, maybe just for their own private collection or to give as a gift, they're going to be willing to spend more money for a book that has a real and actual description, and that then the condition, the description is of something that is in good condition or like excellent condition, where you can say, well, this book is collection worthy or gift in gift giving condition. There really is no wear. There's no markings. It looks like it was just purchased off the shelf of a retail bookstore. And I feel when you go in and just take a scanner to every book at a sale, you're not going to take the scanner certainly not going to take into account things like this. It's just going to go give you the lowest price, and it's going to show you that maybe the 15 book people who below you or below the like new price. And I know there's all sorts of parameters you could set it for, but it's going to show you people who don't bother to put in the conditions. You just have who just say very good and leave it at that. And you don't know, looking at that listing, if it has a dust jacket or anything else about the book. And for people who may not want to take the time to contact the seller to ask specific questions, they want to just look and buy a copy that they see, someone who has a reliable feedback rating, excuse me, and a legitimate description of the book. So it's just important to know when it's appropriate to price a book higher, and when to look, and when you're maybe at a sale and you're trying to determine whether a book is worth purchasing. It helps to know whether, well, this is something that someone's going to look for in really nice shape. Are they going to be willing to spend more money for the attention that you can give to it, or is this book that well, there's a lot of different copies and it's just being priced down and there's no particular advantage to it being in good condition, so you might want to pass on something like that. It's just one reason of many why it's helpful to develop an eye test or an acumen, so that you're not just relying on a device to tell you what to buy, but you use your sense of use your own discernment to try to figure out what to buy. Not saying not to devalue the use of scanners. I know that they can certainly be helpful in some cases, and I'm not above looking things up at sales. What if I'm not sure? If I'm, I want to be sure that if I'm going to spend $1 or $2 or $3 or whatever on a book, that it's something I can do something with. At a bag sale, I'm not going to bother looking stuff up. I'm just, if there's any chance at all, I'll throw it in the bag, and whatever I can't sell, I'll usually find a other way to recoup, and it's such a minimal risk as it is. It's just kind of a waste of time to even bother looking stuff up, I think, when the stakes are so low. Moving on with things that I sold. There goes the fire truck. Bag sale, not a high-priced item. I believe probably $11, but again, like new condition. Einstein's Other Theory, so a Princeton University Press title. Always like veered towards the University Press books. And here's another one from that Civil War collection that I've been mentioning the last few times. This is a $50 sale, Civil War Louisiana. It's from, I believe, 1963, and it has a nice jacket. I put it in the Mylar sleeve, and good solid copy. And this is a book I found recently. I didn't put this in a Mylar sleeve. I might opt to do that before I send it, because the jacket's a little beat up. I found this one at the Wissahickon Valley sale about a month ago. Sold this for $25. The works of Joseph de Maistre. I could be mispronouncing that. I'm not someone I'm familiar with. It's like political philosophy, a collection of essays by a political philosopher. It's not someone that I had been familiar with, but I looked it over. It's kind of gave me the clue that since I wasn't familiar with it, that it could be someone who is lesser known, whose works are not in print, and even a book like this does have the jacket, but the jacket's not in good shape. It's got definitely some chipping, some wear around the corners, but it's scarce enough so that it still went for $25. This was a I sold a few books from that giant art book collection that I got in New Jersey a couple of years ago. This was only $15 sale, but beautiful condition. Again, I'm sure this was a book I was able to price above other ones that were lower because of the condition. Gardens of the Riviera. Here's another one, one of the ones that was still shrink wrapped from that same collection. This was a $35 sale on Amazon. Winslow Homer, Artist and Angler. So a book specifically to his fishing paintings. I guess it involved boating, fishing, which he did many. And there was, let's see, one other sale from that collection. So 3 out of the 22 came from that art book collection. This is another one that's brand new, sealed. Hans Memling, I believe, a Dutch artist from Holland. 15th century artist. There was in that collection. There was a lot of European Renaissance era classic artists, and this went for, I believe, 40. And it's another book I picked up at a bag sale recently up in Princeton earlier this year. I believe it's somewhere between $10 and $15, but like new copy. Mara Kalman, most known for her children's book illustrations. This is a book that just features. It's just a book about her, her art in general, and a book kind of biographical. And then I'll save the best sale of the weekend for last. This is a book that came from the collection, the most recent collection I purchased, the one from Villanova. This is an art book, just a soft cover, but very scarce. Russell Chatham, not someone I had been familiar with. I found this book one other time, and I remembered that it was a high-priced book, but I loved the artwork so much in here that I opted to keep it for my own collection. I don't know if it's really kind of like contorting this. It's kind of one of those oblong books, so it's hard to, and I certainly don't want to open the spine too much. But anyway, 100 paintings, Russell Chatham, and so sure enough, when I found it again, it has retained its value. It has remained a very high priced book. I sold this for $145. And the our bookstore cat has returned. She always likes to get on camera. Yes, Clara. And so those were some, but not all, of the books that sold over the last few days. It was on Saturday afternoon, and today is Tuesday morning. And I just made another sale that I didn't retrieve the books from the shelves yet, but it was a 2-volume set by John Calvin that I also picked up at a bag sale. I'm just looking over these sales, and it's really interesting to realize how many of these books were picked up at bag sales, and whether they're higher price or lower price. I mean, just more and more of my inventory is coming from those, and which is good. I mean, it really means that I'm learning that I don't have to spend so much money up front for the books. Don't have to spend the $2 a piece at the beginning of the sale. I can wait till the end, get many of the same books for much reduced price. I guess Claire's going to stay put here, so I'm going to see her tail switching my face the rest of the time. So I'll also mention I've been going through boxes. I've now gone through 2 full boxes of the collection from Villanova, and this Russell Chatham book was one of the books from there that's already sold. And I'm really enjoying the books. I went through them so fast. If you haven't watched the other videos, the details of this were that I went and other people had been through it. They told me 5 or 6 other people had been through the collection already. So that, I guess they were just trying to unload what was left. And they said, well, just take what you want for $25. And there were so many good books in there. And I could see that Um, but I wasn't looking things up, and I didn't even really remember what was, for the most part. I'm going through these boxes. I'm like, I barely even remember seeing that before. I made these piles, put them. I was trying to minimize the time I was there, not dally, and it's just a lot of fun going through them and seeing all these, and now getting the chance to really look through the books and see what they are, and um, there's a lot of more recent books, but there's also a lot of older books, and so I'll share some of the things that I found going through these boxes. I'll have to just take the stacks off books that I just shared here. Just a second. In order to get to these books. Okay. Gosh, looking at the size of this pile, I really got my work cut out for me whenever I'm finished filming this. And got my inventory slips in there already, but there's an Arthur Seek book, an original first edition. Arthur Seek was a Polish artist, mainly did book illustration, and kind of a Polish Jewish exile who came to America, and a lot of his illustrations, a lot of the books he published were of a socio-political bent, and this one certainly, called The New Order. It was published in 1941, and it's got a lot of excuse me, still got the allergies going on. Illustrations of not unflattering, sort of almost cartoonish illustrations of the Third Reich figures, Hitler and such. Now that I'm opening up, I'm getting a little bit of a little bit of a mildewy odor coming out of there. But this I listed for $78 on Amazon, $65 on Abe Books. Doesn't have it. It was supposed to. It came with a dust jacket originally, so it doesn't have the jacket. But even so, the cloth boards were protected. Are in good shape. It's preserved pretty nicely. So even without the jacket, it still has a pretty decent value, and it does have, a small inscription in the inside, but it's the only marking in there, and it really doesn't detract from the value a whole lot. And there were a lot of the last box I was working with last night had a lot of children's books. Some are more a recent vintage and some older. And this again, these two books that I'm not familiar with: Sir Cedric and Sir Cedric Rides Again. And these are immaculate condition. They do have the dust jackets. They were published in the 1980s. And there aren't a whole lot of copies of either of them out there, but because they are in such great condition, and they are first American editions, I think these were British. There are a lot of Britannia, a lot of British content in this collection in general, but these two, yes, first American editions in like new condition. I think that they were each like a $50 books. You might not think that children's books, more recent children's books would be that would command that kind of value, but they do. I mean, children's picture books, vintage children's picture books with dust jackets. Always look at children's books. I mean, that can be a pretty good field to concentrate on when you go to sales. It's something that people don't really pay a lot of attention to. It helps to know, who there are certain authors that are more collectible than others. But even if you don't recognize the author, or even if I don't recognize the author, if you look at it, it's like major publisher, Macmillan, Doubleday, or the dog is barking. Something of that nature, and it's got really nice illustrations of certain vintage. It's good condition, It's not easy to find older children's books in good condition, mostly because of what happens to books when children get their hands on them, especially with dust jackets, and and writing names on the inside, or scribbling or whatever. So it's, and a lot of the children's books you'll find are ex-library. So finding a children's picture book, just got a couple of examples that are not ex-library, that have jackets that are in good condition, that don't have too many markings. You can really have something really nice on your hands there. These are two books that were in the collection of the by the same author and the same character, Obadiah the Pigeon. By trying to hold these in such a way that I'm not obscuring my face and that also makes them visible. Um, Brinton Turkle. These were both released in the 1960s. I think Obadiah the Bold was the first in the series, and this was a later one. Thy Friend Obadiah. It's about an early American like pioneer. So it's like it's a story of a pigeon set in the context of early American history, I guess, or historical sort of overview of town life in the 18th century. And this one, so this is from 1965, and let's see, the book itself is beautiful. It's got a little bit of the what we call foxing. You can see the oxidation, discoloring of the pages, but only on this front free end paper. And otherwise, it's got no markings. It's got a great binding. The jacket, I'm gonna put this in the Mylar sleeve for sure. Pretty good jacket. A little tear here. This one has a may not be too visible because it blends with the cloth board underneath. That this has a pretty big chip at the left or the right. You can see it. So I priced that accordingly. Even with that chip, otherwise it's clean. There's no other faults really in the book. The chip definitely reduces the value some, but even so, I priced this at $35. This one, I believe, was more like I think 75 on it, 75 on Amazon, and maybe like 50 on A-Books. And another one sort of in this vein. This is from 1950s. 1957 was the date on this, so it's the first edition. The Cow Who Fell into the Canal. And the illustrator in this case is notable, Peter Spire. If you ever see his name on any books, it's something of note, because his books he illustrated are definitely a collectible. And this is, a hardcover. Doesn't have any markings, library or otherwise. The jacket's got a little bit of, it's darkened, kind of soiled, meaning that there's like some damp staining around the spine and on the adjacent edges. And it does have a tear, not probably too visible from where you're sitting. It does have like a 3-inch tear going up from the bottom edge in the back. Excuse me. But first edition to this book, with jackets, pretty scarce. I believe I priced this around $60. And the best one of all so far, from the children's books anyway, it's a book, America Begins, and a very Alice Dalglish, early to mid-century children's book illustrator who's a lot of historical books for children. And however much I personally cringe at older histories meant for children, it's a rather nice book. Really, it's a very thorough history. Certainly, show one of the illustrations. There are some that are just sort of monochromatic illustrations, and some that are more full color. In any case, and this is not, it says revised edition. The original edition was published in 1938. This one from 1958. In either case, it's a pretty rare book. Again, I can hold this up. I'm sure the camera's not going to quite pick up, even with my light on there. It's got some kind of soiling, wrinkling to the back of the jacket. Even though then there's like a band, that's a silver band around here that says Scribner's, that's the publisher, Scribner's Library Binding. Underneath the jacket, it's got a pictorial cover, same as the illustration on the front, and I guess a different kind of texture to the boards, which indicates a library binding. So I guess, but even so, it was never an there's a big difference between a library bound book, or book I guess meant for to be placed in a library, and a book that's actually been marked up by a library. It puts their stamp on it, it puts the card pocket and everything else that they do to mutilate books. This was never in the possession of a library, from what I can see, and so in this condition, I have priced it pretty conservatively, about $120, $130, and that's the lowest price in any condition. But so just kind of, when I saw it, of course, it just caught my eyes. Like, well, this is this book that's certainly that's got to be of some value. That it's just the giveaways being the older illustrated children's book with a dust jacket. Always pick those things up. I had no inclination this was going to be a $130 book. I would have thought maybe 25, somewhere along those lines, maybe 50. Turned out to be more of a scarce title than that. So some of the books I've been dealing with and selling recently, and of course there will be more. So I'm going to stop for now. I'm sure that probably exceeded the time that I wanted to make this video, but hope you managed to enjoy it anyway. And as always, thanks for watching, and for your subscriptions and any comments you want to leave are certainly appreciated. My name is David. This has been the 6th edition of Adventures in Book Scouting. Please look out for more as the adventures go on, indefinitely. Again, thank you, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.